Hey, how's it going? Mr. Dixon back here with another tool I just wanted to briefly show you. So if you Google usdebtclock.org, it'll bring you to this tool. And this is, it's busy, I get it, right? There's a lot going on here. But what's remarkable is there's a lot of data in here that we've talked about in class. So I just want to point out a few things to you, right? Obviously, it's talking about debt, and here's the debt right there. $24 trillion is what the U.S. owes. And we've talked about this in class, but the U.S. debt is just the accumulation of all of the annual deficits. So this right here is telling you what the federal deficit is. So we're about $2 trillion. We've spent more by about $2 trillion. And of course, this data is changing constantly. I mean, obviously you can see it changing in the graph here, but as Congress approves more and more stimulus spending for Corona, then the deficit grows, and it changes. But yeah, so for this annual looks like we're spending about $2 trillion more. You'll recall that the debt is really, how does the U.S. pay for its debt? Well, through U.S. government securities. So that means there's about $24 trillion in U.S. government securities out there. Another interesting thing to look at is the debt in relation to GDP. So U.S. Gross domestic product is running about 21, call it 22 trillion. And anytime that ratio gets above 100% right now, right, so we owe more than we actually produce in any given year, and that percentage now is about 112%. And typically that kind of gets the attention of economists. There are plenty of nations that have a much higher ratio, but U.S. typically, you can see historically U.S. has been well below 100, so anything over 100 kind of gets our attention. Other things we've talked about, chapter 9, we talked a little bit about revenue, right? So there's the revenue coming in. What did we say that the greatest revenue comes from? Income tax. So income tax, you can see about 1.6, 1.7 trillion, about half of U.S. federal revenue comes from income tax. So you can see that there. Other things, again, my point isn't to go through this entire eye chart because there's a lot going on. But earlier when we talked about Fred, we talked about some of the goals and looking at inflation and unemployment and things like that. Here you go. Some of that same information is covered here. So, the U.S. workforce, the unemployed, actual unemployed, the official unemployed is different. We talked a little bit about that in terms of discouraged workers and etc. But we talked about not in the labor force. And anyway, so lots of good information here. In chapter 10, we talked about money supply. There's M2, right? I know you thought M2 was just something I made up and to torture you with, but there it is. There's our M2 money supply. And I should show you this. If you take your cursor and put it over, so there's my little cursor, put it over a title block, it gives you information up there. So there's the definition of M2, right? M1 plus various types of savings instruments, and there you go. Another thing, I'll just throw this out, but let's see, where is it? Money creation. Again, as you sort of put your cursor over different things, it gives you a little bit of background and history. And I put money creation, and then you go over here and click money banking history, and it'll give you kind of a history of money in the U.S., which again, I know is terribly exciting, right? You were sitting at home thinking, what am I going to do today as I pass the time in my shelter at home mode, and now you can spend all kinds of time exploring this tool and looking at the various economic outputs. So hope that was helpful, and let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks.